I clearly know what I was doing at my work because I was kept on and given a raise and all that kind of stuff before I left. But it's just something where you wonder, you always feel like you're kind of not either, you're the dumbest person in the room versus one of the smartest, because you always feel like, yes, someone knows more than me. But instead of just acknowledging that, yes, there's always going to be someone who knows more, is better at something, that's just life. It goes into this downward spiral where it's not just that they're better than you, it's that you're a fake. You don't actually know what you're doing. They're going to tell you that we made a mistake. We shouldn't have hired you, or we shouldn't have bought this book. This is drivel. It's just that vicious little voice in the back of your head that says, not that it's different than saying, oh, you're just not good enough. It's more of, you don't belong here. You're not one of us. Whoever that us is, if it's an artist, a writer, or just, being, in a marketing position, it's like, you don't belong here. Mm-hmm. And so dealing with it a lot is, I end up talking to people where it's like, hey, I did this thing. Is it good? And it sounds so kind of juvenile, where it's just like, hey, make me feel better. Please tell me that I don't suck. But that's kind of how I deal with it. I need that validation. And whether it comes from just like my husband or my parents, it doesn't have to be someone who's better at something than me. It just needs to be someone to be like, no, you got this. You're fine. This is normal. But I do need validation, and that helps me get past it, which sounds terrible because you shouldn't need something or someone to validate your existence, but it's the quickest way for me to not feel like someone's going to be like, hey, we caught on to your game. You need to leave now.
Yeah.
But I've actually written a blog post about it because it's acknowledging that it's there and that it's different than just low self-esteem helps me deal with it too, because it isn't just that, oh, I'm ugly. It's not like that. It's just something that makes you feel that you're not just not good enough. Like, this is not for you.
Mm-hmm. Do you see it coming up on every project that you work on, or is it just selective projects at selective times?
It's selective projects usually. Like, I feel early on when I started The Monster of Selkirk, it was pretty prevalent because I hadn't done it before. So it comes up a lot when I'm venturing into uncharted territory or I'm new at something. Like, I remember my first time in the working force outside of internships, my first day on a job, I cried at my desk because they're like, oh my God, they're going to find out that they shouldn't have hired me. But then, months later, new job down the road, I didn't have that kind of imposter syndrome because past experience was there to tell me what was normal. So for the first couple of books for The Monster of Selkirk, it was a lot stronger. And then now, because I'm finishing up the series, it's not there as much because I feel like I've not just learned, but that I have fans and I have people who love the series. So that kind of helps negate that voice. But now it pops up a lot when I'm doing short stories or novellas because it's much easier for me to write 60K plus words than it is for me to write something that's 5,000 words. Mm-hmm. So trying to do that and feeling like, oh, it comes up more there now than it does for my fantasy stuff.
Sure. As your writing career has progressed, what have been some investments in yourself and your writing that have paid off the most dividends?
You mean in terms of just like moving books, or?
Yeah, I mean, it could be moving books, in how, in maybe making you a better writer in general, just whatever you felt like has helped your career the most.
Okay. Getting craft books, like, the Thesauruses that I mentioned have been great because now my characters aren't so like paper cutout staccato, mm-hmm. But also getting involved early in social media and those kind of platforms in order to build the author platform before something came out. So, the biggest thing that's actually helped me in terms of my writing career in moving products, sounds so bad, moving books, and getting the word out that, hey, I've got a thing that you might find interesting has been Instagram. There's this vibrant, hashtag Bookstagram community and like a lot of writers. And I've met some fabulous people on there who are going through the same stuff I'm going through or who have seen my book covers. I'm like, oh, this looks interesting. And getting in on that early has not just helped me find, a community of like-minded people who I can bounce ideas off of, to make my writing and my stories stronger, but also help me just get the word out that I have this fantasy series out there, because I don't have, the huge marketing budgets from a big publisher. A lot of what I do is my own resources and my own know-how in terms of advertising. So getting that social push has been a little bit harder when it just comes to finding people who kind of know what this is like. Mm-hmm. So that's really helped in both just getting the awareness out there and also finding people who I can say, hey, does this sound like a stupid idea? And have them be like, yes, but you could do that and it would be great. And that's been really helpful too.
Yeah. I'm curious then, since you've mentioned, I guess, moving books slightly, because your background was so, in the communication and advertising space where you have, learned about people's buying behaviors and what makes them tick, does that influence how you write your books or how you market and sell your books?
Not so much how I write, unless I'm doing a contemporary fiction and then it's like someone's job, because I can write that more realistically because I've been in those kind of office situations. But when it comes to posting things on Facebook or trying to do promoted posts on Instagram or newsletters, it has helped in terms of making targets. So people who are interested in like Brandon Sanderson or Sarah J. Maas type books, then I can build those kind of target audiences and make sure that when I'm spending my own money on these platforms where there's so many people where you can just get lost if you're not being targeted, it helps me there, so that I don't waste money, which unfortunately is really easy to do on Facebook. When you have, if you have your branded page, you may get a ton of followers because your family and friends have liked your page and they've gotten others to like your page. But with Facebook having changed their policies on how these, these pages that are not people and how those posts are shown, it's de-emphasized a lot of that content in favor for, your niece and nephew pictures and stuff like that, which is what Facebook was originally. But it means that if I want all of my followers to see a post, I have to pay to do it. Right. And I don't always want to do that. So if I'm going to put money into it, it's going to be a much bigger endeavor, because otherwise it's just throwing money into a black hole. And thankfully, my communication in my previous career has helped me figure out who to talk to based on shared interests versus just a blanket demographic of, oh, I think women will like my book more. They may not. It might just be based on like, oh my gosh, Brandon Sanderson readers are, I'm making this up, are 80% guys, but it's the same sort of book as mine. So I should still be talking to them, even though my main character is a girl.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So if a listener listening to this podcast is also debating whether or not to go into a writing career, what advice would you give them on just starting off, on things they should do or books they should read or things they should or just practice?
You can't get better at something without doing it. And unfortunately, writing is one of those things that you can read every single book there is about how to publish a book, how to write a book, because there are a ton out there. But if you don't start writing, all of that research isn't going to matter. So I would say if you have an idea for a story, start writing that first. And then once you feel like, either I'm stuck or this is awesome. Don't do anything with it yet. Don't say like, I am done and throw it out the door. That's when you should go back and start reading. All right, well, what's the next step? How do I make this better? Is there a way to make it better? And, there's Save the Cat, which is it's for screenwriters, but there's some really good tips in it for writing books. And then those Thesauruses and how to publish and what's the best way to publish, because you can try traditional or maybe self-publishing is the best route for you. But writing is almost the easier part if you've got a story to tell. It's everything after is where things can fall apart if you're not treating your potential reader with respect. If you not, people are really smart, and if you try to talk down to them or you're not putting the work in to make something good by getting an editor, if you think that, oh, well, I took English in college, I don't need an editor. That is false. You need an editor. And it costs money. So being able to have the resources is tough. But if it's something you want to do, it's worth it to do it right. Otherwise, you're going to get pigeonholed into a place where people don't expect greatness from you. And it's something that everyone is capable of if they have these stories to tell. So to be patient and to take your time. And if you think something's done, it's usually not the first time around. So put it away for a month or two. Don't look at it. Don't reread anything. Come back to it with fresh eyes, and you'd be surprised at what you've missed. You may have accidentally, because you can spell a word correctly and still have it be wrong, and your Word document isn't going to catch it. Right. But if you've been spending so much time looking at it, you won't either. But if you put it away and then come back to it later, you're more likely to see those things. So doing something like that and getting other eyeballs on it. So it could even be your family, but other people who read in the genre that you're trying to write in, who are fans of that genre. So they don't necessarily have to be a professional editor, but just someone who really loves to read the stuff that you're writing. And they can tell you, hey, your character, I'm not connecting with them, or this part is amazing. I want more of that. And you can kind of figure out if you're going down the right path or not. But if you try to do it all by yourself in a little cubbyhole where you're just listening to yourself talk and think that it's all, oh, this is perfect. You may get a rude awakening, and there's ways to avoid that and then put out a better product to where you're more likely to get a literary agent, or when you do self-publish, it's going to be one of those success stories where people are like, oh my God, he's self-published. This is amazing. Or it's like, oh, I can see why they self-published. There's ways to avoid doing that, as simple as just having someone else read it before you decide you want to start putting that work out there.
Yeah. So in everything that you've done so far, what would you say has been the best advice you've ever received?
To be patient. It's one of those, this industry is full of rejection. It's full of people telling you that you need to work on some stuff. But that's not meant to discourage you. It's just meant to be, all right, I need to go back and fix something, or I need to take my time or wait for the right opportunity or the right deal to come along. So to be patient was always the best advice I got, because you treat this like a marathon rather than a sprint. The way most people go into it, it's a sprint to the finish line, but really it's a marathon. It's going to take a while, and to be patient. Just because you get 40 rejections, or just because it takes a year or 2 years to write something, doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that it took 2 years to do it. And to not give up. So just be patient. If you have a story to tell, it is worth telling. So be patient with telling your story.
That's great advice. Thank you. So, Chelscey, again, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I really appreciate it. If the listeners would like to read more of your writing and see more of your work, where is the best place they can go to do that?
Probably my website, because it links out to my Amazon and my Goodreads and my Instagram. It's ceclayton.com, because I do go by my pen name,